Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. So I just happened to stumble across this and I thought I would give my opinion on it because I think it highlights a big problem within the modern video game industry and entertainment in general, which is elitism. Now I know that there are some fans who feel that we need to just in general when it comes to the fandoms and the hobbies that we love to institute gatekeeping to keep the bad actors out, which in general I agree with, but this attitude expressed here by Patrick Weeks is what I worry about and what I fear when it comes to gatekeeping, because gatekeeping can quickly lead to, I think, to elitism, right? Where you start shaming people for being different or not having the same breadth of knowledge that you do because maybe they're more casual or they simply came into a particular franchise or series or whatnot just at a later time, right? And you, having been there from an earlier period, naturally have more knowledge and then believe yourself to be superior, right? So I agree with gatekeeping, but the question is, how is the gate kept? Because you want to keep sincere people in, even if they're new or casuals, and you want to keep bad people out. But that's a video for probably a deeper thought analysis on another night. I was about to say day, but then I realized it's like 9:40 at night here in New York. So I hope everybody's well. But let me just briefly cover this. Now, there's some sort of drama going on with TSR games, and it's like it says here that the Game Wizards were founded in 1973 and that they reformed in 2020. It's a tabletop thing. I don't really follow tabletop stuff. Nothing against it, just not really my thing. So I'm looking at this more as a neutral observer. So I'm evaluating the responses as they are, right? So TRS Games says, in today's hyper polarized culture, we have a firm commitment to keep gaming fantasy. We invite you to escape with us. Now, I would say, generally speaking, I agree with this statement. Right? Part of the problem with a lot of modern games is that, not all, but a lot of them want to make a real world statement. They want to make a statement, usually a poorly thought out, very divisive statement about real world politics or real world issues. And generally speaking, gaming and entertainment in general is about, as it points out in this tweet, escapism, right? It's about getting away from all that stuff, taking a mental break from it and getting lost in a different world, right? That's the fun of gaming or the fun of just entertainment and fantasy in general. Now, of course, fantasy is typically sort of codified in entertainment as stuff like, swords and sorcery, magic, things like that, right? But there's other types of fantasy, right? Uh, there's the gritty, realistic fantasy, right? Say a detective story or a cop show or something military based. There's space, right? Sci-fi, right? Science fiction, science fantasy, right? And then you have entirely different things like just from different cultures, like manhwa in Korea, or you have anime and manga from Japan, and all this different stuff, right? But the vast majority of it, right, is fantasy. It is totally weird characters, far off worlds, right? Like one of the most popular fantasy series that people constantly argue about is Star Wars. And Star Wars quite literally says in a galaxy far, far away, right? And it's featured aliens, and it's featured, evil emperors and repentant warriors and laser swords, and again, stuff that you just don't see in your modern day reality, right? So yes, I agree that we should keep gaming fantasy and in general keep entertainment fantasy and keep entertainment fun. That doesn't mean that entertainment necessarily has to be empty without a purpose or a meaning or a message. Plenty of entertainment has meaning and messages or touches upon social issues of the day. But it depends on how you do it, right? Are you doing it to shame people? Are you doing it to be divisive, right? To build up walls, to make people hate each other? Or are you doing it, is the message about one of bringing down walls, about mending fences and coming together despite differences, right? So that's the issue, right? A lot of people talk about, well, this has always been political, or that's always been political. Yes, they may have touched upon political or social themes or issues, but they were never explicitly about that in most cases, Star Wars being an example of that. They were more about, the human experience, right? Love, loss, madness, redemption, family, things of that particular nature, right? But I know this ramble is sort of, unrelated. So let's go to what Patrick says here, right? Patrick says, you don't own gaming, you don't own fantasy. Well, neither does EA and BioWare, Patrick. Remember, you are a writer at EA BioWare, but y'all don't own gaming either. If any company owns gaming, if any company can make claim to that, it'd probably be Nintendo. Given that most modern gamers, especially older ones like myself, one of the first video game systems you would have owned back then was the Nintendo Entertainment System. So if any company could make a claim to owning gaming, it's probably Nintendo, just on reputation and grandfather clause alone. But anyway, it says you don't own gaming, you don't own fantasy. Somewhere along the way, they outgrew you, and some of us grew along with them. Our table holds a lot more than yours. Ah, much mature, Patrick. I'm sure that your dad can beat up his dad, too, or her dad, whoever wrote that. And then Christina, who I admit I follow, right? She says Mass Effect Andromeda, and I didn't know this, and I thought I was pretty knowledgeable on Andromeda, so maybe this is something I wasn't aware of or that I missed. But she says Mass Effect Andromeda featured a trans character so bad, the character had to be patched and an apology issued to trans people for being so bad. Grew like a backed up sewer pipe, and you can see a lot of people, including myself, agreed with her. And then there's Nihilistic Nerd, who says, I could state the obvious, like BioWare hasn't written a good story in years. Instead, I'll point out that you're strawmanning. The tweet you responded to never stated they own fantasy or gaming. Furthermore, plenty of people don't want identity politics in their games. I agree, hence why I retweeted this. And then, of course, this person's Zoro Rides brings up, you write for EA, you write parts of the worst fantasy for EA, right? So if you look through the tweets here, Patrick is getting roasted. Patrick is getting roasted and then some. And here's what I have to say about it, right? Here's what I have to say about it. As a lifelong gamer who started with the NES at age 4, I didn't outgrow gaming. The industry changed into something I don't recognize and in good conscience can no longer support. Gaming left me. I never left it. And that is sincerely how I feel about it. I feel like the gaming industry just became something too different from me. Right? I still love gaming, but I haven't had a video game system in the house ever since what, the PS3 probably. Which is both because of money, right? It's easy to spend hundreds of dollars on a video game system when it's not your money. It's much harder when it's your cash. But mostly because honestly, I don't recognize gaming anymore. It left me, right? It turned into something that I can't support in most instances. It isn't just a matter of, personal taste. Like, look, I grew up in the age of the fighting game glut, right? I understand that's kind of cooled off over the years. That's not my issue. I played plenty of games growing up that were not fighting games. I played Metal Gear Solid. I played action adventure games. I played sports titles. I played uh, uh, Jesus RPGs, right? Especially a lot of JRPGs. I sort of fell off on that, but my brother still loves them. But the principal reason I don't play modern games, I should say, I'm very much a retro gamer. But the reason I don't play modern games is honestly because of people like Patrick Weeks here. This elitism, this egotism. You don't own gaming, you don't own fantasy. Yeah, I know that. I know I don't own those things, but I like to engage in those things, and tweets like this just make it that much harder for me to do so because I don't feel respected or appreciated or valued as a customer who spends money. Okay, my mother spent money, and then when I became an adult, I spent money, right, on video games or video game systems or various titles, additional things like, a memory card, a controller, backups, right, cords, all of this stuff, right? TV, if the TV broke, you have to get a new TV set. I spent a lot of money, or my mother spent, and then later on I spent a lot of money over my lifetime in gaming, and it's like, this is what you have to say? That you don't own gaming? I understand this tweet is not directed at me, but still, that you don't own gaming, that you don't own fantasy, and our table holds a lot more than yours. I am sorry, Patrick, but I think this type of tweet is going to push people away. Because this is a type of elitism that has infected gaming. You don't own this. We do. Right? We own it now, right? We pushed all of the geeks who just wanted to have a good time, right? Who just wanted to get lost in their fantasy game. Right? We pushed all of them out, right? We pushed out. See if it loads again. But pushed out all the people that's sort of the TSR tweet. There we go. At the TSR tweet, represents people who just want to have fun. People who just want to escape, take a little break from the real world. You push all of them out, so you can come in and say that, well, you don't own this. Yeah, because there was a hostile takeover. Yeah, we don't own it because you guys came in and ran us out. And that's the thing. And that's what saddens me. Gaming, when I first started with it, was fun. Completely crazy, zany ideas. Look at Mario. Mario wouldn't be made today, right? Because the idea of a chubby Italian plumber in a mushroom land is not exactly going. A chubby Italian mushroom in chubby Italian plumber in a mushroom land, right? Trying to save a princess who's being held by the evil King Koopa, right? Or Bowser, whatever the heck it is, right? Who's like a spiked turtle thing or whatever. It wouldn't float in today's world. Because the first thing is, how do you make money off of that? That makes absolutely no sense. Is this an allegory for drugs? Especially with the Mushroom Kingdom? Right? That's how people would approach it. There's just too much cynicism now, and too much corporatism. And I get it. It's a business. It's an industry. There's always going to be an element of corporatism to it. But it's corporatism run amok. It's stuff like loot boxes and surprise mechanics and paywalls and all of this other stuff. And it's not just stuff like, pay $2 for this, DLC costume pack, right? Or pay $10 for this stage, right? It's stuff like pay $30 for Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 5, or the Capcom really to play Street Fighter 5, right? For a season pass, so you can unlock, get this, Sagat and Sakura, two characters who have been in the games for well over a decade. No. No. This is the type of stuff that pushes people like me away and either stops us from gaming completely or, in my case, keeps us, happily stuck in the past. And it's sad. It's sad that this type of elitism has now infected the gaming industry, but it's also not surprising because this is what happens when something that was very indie in gaming for a long time was very indie, right? Something that starts out indie then becomes mainstream. The first thing it loses is its soul. It loses the very thing that made it distinct and unique and authentic to the people who loved it first, right? That's the first thing that has to go. If you want mainstream acceptance, you have to give up what makes you authentic and distinct. There's a reason why it's called selling out, right? Or selling your soul, because you are giving up the heart, the core of who you are, or what your industry is, or what your company or your game is about, for that mainstream acceptance. And then when you hit the mainstream, well, then what happens? This elitism, which has sort of always been there, but especially once you hit the mainstream, this elitism kicks in, right? All of the original geeks who just wanted to have fun get pushed out, and then the people who just look at a game or look at a franchise and just see a money making machine and don't see a piece of creative art for people to interact with take over. And you get stuff like this. You don't own this. They outgrew you. No, Patrick, no. As I said before, I didn't outgrow gaming. I never outgrew it. I hope I never do. Right? I don't want to outgrow gaming. But gaming morphed into something that I don't know anymore. Right? It's kind of like, in a weird way, it's kind of like a relationship with a person, right? It could be platonic or it could be a romantic one, right? But I think we all have this experience, right, where there's somebody who was in our lives and we were so close to them, but in time we changed and they just went down a path, right, that we just can't go down, right? It's like the song "Follow You Down," right? Anywhere you go, I'll follow you down. I'll follow you down, but not that far. This is kind of what it reminds me of. It's like I will always love gaming. Same way there are some people in my life who will always have a soft spot in my heart. But I can't go down that path with you. I cannot follow you into something that I think is self destructive, is hurting you. I can't do that. Not even for something or someone I love, right? I'd rather walk away and say our goodbyes than to support something that I cannot morally agree with, right? Especially if I feel that it's actually detrimental to a person or, in this case, to an industry, right? So y'all go on with your elitism that is destroying your industry and your companies. Even though the hottest thing right now is Metroid Dread, which is actually, very old school given the character and the story and all this other stuff. It's actually embracing the old school. But y'all keep destroying yourselves if that's what you want to do. I'm going to sit back here happily playing Streets of Rage 2 on emulators or whatever I can find. I'm gonna stay in the past, right where I belong. It makes me happy. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day or night wherever you are. Bye.